Um, uh, July 23rd, special meeting of the city council. Louisville, in order. Take a roll. You got everybody? Okay. Having a little bit technical. Um, but wrong, just. Right, we have several items on our agenda tonight that discussion direction around our 2025 city council work plan is at the top of the list. So we're starting with staff statement.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So you may recall we first met about your 2025 work plan in June, and this is another in a series of those meetings. Tonight, we're excited to focus on what council's priorities are as a body. Our hope tonight is that we come as a group to 3 to 5 priorities that we can use during the budget process. With these 3 to 5 priorities, staff will also take those, apply projects, programs, tasks that fit with that, and bring you back a draft work plan for your review. Then you can adjust that as you see fit. I really want to thank you for taking this process on with us. I think it's going to be a really interesting conversation. And I think it's really helpful to do the day before our budget retreat as we identify what these priorities for our city are. With that, I know the mayor is going to lead us through the process tonight.
Thought you were going to say, the mayor is going to lead us in prayer. I think I'll want to do that. I'll attempt it. Okay, tonight, I talked with, well, I think we have, each of us come up with priorities that you've been thinking about. But we talked through those shadow or the shadow of the budget upon us. And what I was the interim city manager talking about is she's been encouraging us to do in this meeting is to be specific as we can on the priorities to set. And we've got a plan for 2024. It's, we're halfway through, a little over halfway through 2024. And in some ways, what our discussion tonight is going to feed into how things work the rest of this year. But we are focused in the first instance on 2025 and what we'd like to get started. So tomorrow, what it's going to be that we need that can guide us through the development of that work plan. And remember that what we did last year, we had people joining us at various. We had Councilman Byrne join us. I can't remember what was the date.
Beginning of October.
And then, of course, we had we had folks get resworn in November, but then council Spearman appointed early part of the year. This year, we can do work on plan tonight and then look for a minute of this. So we can get closer to 2000. So all of that said, let's see. I think what I would kind of like to do, if we can, at the beginning, is to do sort of kind of go around the room and talk about it, and get a sense of what those priorities are for each of us. And we may come to some consensus about what those priorities are. We may. I think we have all seen the citizen survey from last week, and it's perfect timing to lead into this discussion. So, Mr. Bierman, want to kick it off?
Sure. So, my priorities based on work plan that's already sort of in place before I joined council and I think first and foremost for me is getting this economic engine flowing again, really humming. What I mean by that is we've got to attract businesses, development to our town. So making that as easy as possible from an application process, so that's friendly and transparent, and really flipping that reputation that, we're not business friendly, right? And we're not easy to do business with. So really focus on, and the citizens spoke loud and clear on that. The residents are being, the number one priority. So with that, we can fill our coffers and we can do far more stuff. I know tomorrow's going to be probably a challenging discussion. So for me, first and foremost, is the economic vitality piece, the attraction of businesses, retention of businesses, changing the policy, changing the attitude as needed, and just I'd love to see us starting from a place of yes and working through the minutia, right? I think so many times people don't even want to attempt to engage the city because they think, oh, we're going to get a no, right? So, and that takes time to put that reputation. Along those lines, I'd really love to see some traction with the downtown vision plan, whether that's focused on front or main or a combination, but really, putting some action behind what, the outside consultant done, then engage Louisville, downtown revitalization. I really want to see that get some traction. So I lump that with the economic vitality. It's like sort of two priorities there. And then really want to see us aggressively, address the zoning code to allow for attainable housing. And I'd love to see some mixed use be zoned or allowed, or be more aggressive around mixed use. I love what I'm seeing over in Superior. Now, I know they haven't really attracted the retail portion, but just on the drive down to the sports stable, just love what they're doing over there. And I'd love to see something similar, appropriate on Main Street, but, they're hearing, no one can afford to live in this town. The average home price of 863, that's pretty high hurdle. So, and for me, that's kind of, small A affordable, big A attainable, or whatever we want to call it, but really addressing that need, some zoning changes and council efforts as well. So those are kind of my priorities.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, thanks. I share a lot of Tim's priorities. I sort of lump the things that I really care about, or my top priorities, into two categories. One is what Tim just talked about on the economic vitality. I think that's finishing what we started with the comp plan. And I know that's something we already have scheduled and planned to finish by mid-25. But I think it's really important that we do finish that by mid-25. I sort of have a comprehensive vision for Louisville. My hope is comp plan includes affordable housing, it includes mixed use, it includes sort of build out of future built city facilities and that type of thing in terms of office space or recreation facilities or sort of a vision around that. Then the other piece of economic vitality for me is the downtown vision plan and looking at that both in terms of the sort of schedule we already have going and then revisiting our conversation about Main Street and options for Main Street in the summer of 25. Obviously, that conversation this year was difficult and hasty, and I'd love to see us take it up. Foresight 25 and do it in a way that's consistent. Vision plan. Maybe the answer is we would do some conversation. So that's category one, economic vitality category. And I really see comp plan and then, to the extent needed after comp plan, land use code as the key part of that. And then my second bucket would be more in terms of core city services. I think a number of us have been talking about asset management and taking care of what we have and planning for the future in a more robust way. I'd love to see us take that up. And then I think we already have scheduled, but I think to spend some time on the parks, recreation, and open space master plan, which I think we heard in the survey that does really important topics to folks, and something that we should put some time and energy into. And that's it. I have other priorities too, but those are top of the list.
Thank you. Number 10.
Thanks, yeah, number one on my list is the problem I say was lack of affordable housing and diversity of housing stock, and so I think, I think we're successful if we start to see, ADUs being actually like registered and occupied and, real and affordable housing development actually being built, or at least, moving in the direction of a real project, not a policy or, trying to put on paper what it is that we're going for. But for me, success looks like breaking ground on affordable housing projects. And some of the stuff in the codes there, making it easier, whether it's, higher density, less parking, some more use by right, to counter the NIMBY opposition that will come with any affordable housing project, wherever it ends up being. So, what are the processes that can make that go better? My second one is actually the downtown vision plan and completing that and beginning to implement that in whatever form it takes place. But, makeover, especially I think of our Front Street gathering space, experiencing a lot of positives this summer with the street fair and farmers. Good, I'll start over. It's just remarkable that many people are coming down to a farmer's market, which is actually a very sweet event, and supports a lot of local people. So that is something I'm just really excited about what we do there. I think it can be a transformative project for our community. Clearly, I think we're still working on, I had a set time, so I'll just fire through them, but, need for safer crossings and enhanced bike paths is just kind of a constant. And we're seeing that as something that's still very, very, very important to our community, and it's never ending, right? It's kind of like, anything else we do that's public good, that we can always get better at it. Arts and culture, I have a, increased art and culture throughout the year, so quantity, and throughout the city, so location. So trying to host more events and interesting events, and that was one of the reasons I thought potentially buying the stage might be interesting to be able to host events in the housing corridor or other places, but like, we don't need a stage. But the idea of activating our community in different areas, especially as the Marshall Fire houses continue to be rebuilt and community parties in those areas. And then a remaking of the McCaslin corridor. We have a lot of things in action right now. You know, Relish is under construction. Hopefully we'll get something at Lowe's, you know, CU. A lot of things are in some ways out of our control, but we also have some control in how all of that goes and ties together. And so I think this is a really wonderful few years to potentially really remake the McCaslin corridor. I'll stop there, and I think that's enough. I have a couple more, but they're lower down.
It's actually okay, to talk about the lower end too. I mean,
Yeah, I'll just mention then, so under environmental sustainability and resilience, the decarb plan, just continuing to execute that plan and hopefully we'll see with the budget conversation tomorrow. But it's, you know, one of those set it and forget it for me a little bit, like we've kind of given direction there, not kind of, we've given direction, we've allocated funds there, but as we continue to have conversations around our budget, not losing sight of the priority, but also understanding like what's, you know, reasonable amount to spend everywhere. But wanted to continue that decarb plan. And then the last one, actually, I'm really interested in the completion of the dedication of the open space in the red tail area. So I know that red tail discussion is a quasi judicial one, but just thinking about the this in 2025, the immensity of the size of the open space we might be given in that area, and understanding that's going to be a big lift for our community to take on that much open space and what that means. And just working with developers if and when that gets finalized. So I'm not weighing in on the project itself, but the consequences of that much open space being dedicated to the city. So I think that's going to be a huge issue in 2025. Is my thought. So that's it.
thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Councilman Kern.
Well, that was such a short list.
We're,
Good, that was actually really good. That was super
whenever you're.
detailed. So mine, I think, bring. I know this detailed here is actually more in line with teacher from Tim. So, definitely, and I think you heard it loud and clear from the residents, and we've been hearing it for a long time, improving economic prosperity, whatever that's gonna take. I agree. To me, that's continuing to work on our comprehensive plan. I think, yeah, being smart about our timing on it and working diligently to get that finished within the next 12 months is pretty critical to help all the other projects move forward. I'd like to see, when we talk about that too, is working, like I think more hand in hand with our actual economic vitality department, finding ways to bring new businesses in, encourage new current businesses who are here to expand, encouraging things like Shamrock Foods, which I'm super excited for this community that they're here, right? As Director Zaccaro has said to us in the past, retail is the best driver for sales revenue for this community. So the more that we can do that, and we keep hearing from residents, it's a huge priority for them to be able to live here, buy here, you know, so do all their shopping, everything. They want to do it in this community. So the more that we can figure out ways to maintain that or bring it in. I like, and obviously for us, it's just policy issues. So again, it's, you know, whatever we need to do to streamline or encourage or give the correct direction to staff to encourage that. I'd like to see. I phrased it as infrastructure maintenance, but I actually like the way you phrased it, teacher, with core city services. That actually is more encompassing to what I was saying. Make sure that our water treatment systems are up to par, that we don't let things fall by the wayside. We have a lot of physical assets as well within the city of Louisville. I think we've seen some deterioration happen. We're not doing maintenance, working to maintain those assets for us instead of letting them reach a catastrophic point where they're too difficult to maintain more. Part of that infrastructure, I'm also thinking, what if we look into, we hear a lot of comments about self-service through the community. We hear that all throughout the whole town. You know, there's so many dead zones. Maybe that's part of our infrastructure piece that we work on. Communication citywide, improving that I think needs to be super high priority for the council. I know that the interim city manager has already got some great ideas out there and is putting putting feet to the fire and getting some money for us to help improve our website.
Right.
Trying, it's good, it's better than zero, right? But I think we've also heard that people really want a lot of communication. They like a website that's much easier to use, to navigate. Even if it's as simple as being able to quickly look up how do you call for non-emergent help? And it actually pops up the immediate correct answer for you the very first time. Things like that, I think are critical to the community. And then I also have disaster preparedness and making sure that this community citywide is really comfortable and confident in what we know to do between police and fire and city services. If there is another emergency, people are aware of how to get their kids, how to get their pets, where to go, how to be safe. And I think that also is inclusive of preparing this community in case the worst happens and we do have another wildfire. So a lot of open space, it's being mitigated. As we asked, open space is doing a terrific job. I think maybe as we learn new information, we as a council give added direction, but I think we should continue to focus a lot of our effort on making sure our people are safe, their houses are safe, and other people's houses throughout the community are safe. So emergency alerts and the like. And lastly was sort of the parks and rec of public land, but I was focusing mostly on the public spaces. We talk a lot about open space and parks, and I think our public land, our public facing areas that people drive past all the time. We don't really talk about a lot of that, and a lot of money and a lot of planning goes into them, medians and the like. And if that's part of that outward facing piece of Louisville that says, we're here, we look amazing. Even a sign saying this is Louisville, little things like that would be really nice to put in a priority for the year for this. Thank you.
Emma? Okay. Well, my number one priority is just a general category of safety. And that would include not only the police department and what they're monitoring or requiring what they do, but also making sure that we have clean, safe water to drink, that we have roads that are safe to drive on, for cars, bikes, and pedestrians. Cell service throughout the city, so that when we do have an emergency, no matter where you are, you can get that. Or you can log on and get information. Cell service is really sketchy. So I would really like to improve that. And disaster. Preparing for disasters, but also making sure that people are signed up for the alerts. Doing fire mitigation efforts and rebuilds, things like that. Then my second priority is economic vitality, which would include the downtown vision plan, simplifying the building codes. Maybe some people coming in that want to start a business or build a house can do it without taking quite so much time, nitpicking stuff. Then third is affordable housing, or no, sorry, that was number 5. Third is sustainability, including a decarb plan. We really need to get that put through. But that is something that in my mind should be a part of every decision we make, kind of like EDI issues. Everything we do should have a view, at least, how this is going to impact the environment and how it impact EDI. Then number 4 is to maintain what we have. The core services, the library, museum, the parks, open space, the golf course, and just make sure that they're cared for and kept safe. And then the 5th one was portables. And that would, I guess, include some rezoning possibilities and things like that.
Thank you. Councilmember Hammond.
Thank you. So you said 3 to 5, so I'm gonna take 5. I'll give you the headings for each and then what success looks like for me in no particular order. Core city services, and what success looks like there is reliable, high quality services, competitive prices. My second, again, in no order, is economic vitality. What success looks like there for me is reducing empty storefronts, increasing sales tax, attracting and retain businesses, developers, and again, downtown vision plans are mentioned. Parks and open space, so success there for me looks like maintenance, restore, and acquisition as well. Getting that in place. Public safety is another priority. That includes things that have already been mentioned, like communications, such as cell phone services, disaster recovery, preparedness, resilience, and also traffic safety as well. There's a lot of other components of public safety, but I consider those core city services. And then the other is environmental sustainability. So again, making sure that we can carry through the decarbonization. We can make decisions depending on budgetary limitations that may happen. And to me, affordable housing. Together, or mixed use.
Thank you. My own part, I guess I have some sort of semi-specific ones and then some sort of thematic. Notice what's interesting. What they talked in terms of themes here. One advantage of coming today with these priorities is that you get different things in the mix, but the way you did it. I think for me, first and foremost, is economic vitality. I think as far as the components of that, well, I mean, that's what the citizen survey found consistently. The thing that's most needful for us to watch and do and deliver, or at least do our part to set the table to deliver. I think the way I would measure that is in the strategic code changes that we make. I think we still have some that are going to be made yet this year. I think, and frankly, they can't come fast enough, but Rob's got 10,000 things on his plate. And I know that he has a number of them that he wants to bring forward. We expect that to continue and implementing. So getting that, the strategic piece of that, the ones that aren't tied solely to comp plan or that aren't flowing from comp plan. Vision plan is an interesting one. I find it's fascinating. I think it is part for us. It's part of the economic picture. It is a plan that is LRC's initially. And I think LRC will be delighted to know how enthusiastic it is about the economic vitality piece. Remember that and I don't know legally how this works, I guess think about it. But there's been a lot of discussion, there will be, next week between council and LRC about that plan. Because there's, you know, $10 million amount that's available to bond LRC and feeling the pressure of the end of their time in collecting and pledging the TIF revenue. Issues 2031. And so that discussion will be interesting. I think extent the council is interested in contributing to that. Water to a parched throat. And there's some things that you can contributions to from LRC as well, just for two plan, including the underpass, South Street, but that's another piece of discussion. But I think those two things are really important. General retention and acquisition of new businesses, attraction of new businesses. It's a lot easier to retain business than it is to attract new business. At the same time, I think we're poised quite well to attract new business, and we will be if we keep going down the road of sort of coalescing. I think the second one for me is it's one that I didn't really hear. I'm sure heard anybody mention, but I think utilities are pretty. That was an important lesson, I think, in the citizens. People are concerned that issue, and in part that is a worry about inflation. It's just one of those things that's in everybody's budget. It hits every month. That know that it's worth having a discussion probably tomorrow, detail with the public works on the amount of increase proposed, but I do think that that's the issue for us to take care of. I share the concern about this is also to cell coverage. I think that one of the solutions to that is going to direct action by citizens. That may be the most thing is for the community to come together and talk about how we want better services. We're willing to and you know, being mindful. You've got interested in making money too, and trying to make it possible to try to sell. Affordable housing is also important priority. Because we are woefully short of housing. I think there's, and what does success look like? I guess I can utilities. I think smoothing of the increases in rates will be pretty important measure of success of utilities, but I think another one is to improve substantially bigger. So we have to solve that problem once and for all, because it's just ridiculous. The community caliber and the number of people we have in tech here, the number of people we have working at home, we don't have better coverage. I think it's a bad thing. We're getting, I think all of us have gotten plenty of feedback. But affordable housing, I guess part of my hope there is maybe a little bit more modest in the measure of success. Partly because we don't have a lot that we have going there. We don't have a project that's ready to build. We don't have projects that other communities have. We have ideas. And they're for them. It's about, we keep talking about principles and all. It's not really enough. We certainly have inclusive zoning, that's piece, but that's not necessarily the way to do it. In to fund the construction. But it would be nice to have a real affordable housing project underway. Built, we don't know, but underway in 2025, and perhaps more. I don't look at ADUs as thing, but I think I should like to take a stab at that extent that people are just thinking. Comp plan is fourth. These aren't necessary. And I think it would be nice to have some community support. Challenging, but they got so much to do under the comp plan to pave the way to many of the other goals we're trying to reach. Economic vitality. Because we're going to have to change zoning to be able to achieve what we want to in economic vitality. So I'm really looking for that, and I too expect and then that's, let's see, 1, 2, 3. The fifth is really, it is core service. We all sometimes assume that that's just a piece of what we do, but it's very expensive. I don't even know what percentage of the budget we consider core services. Do we know the answer to that? Do we have? But it's a sizable, it's certainly sizable in both capital and general fund, but I think thematically, I think safety is something that is pretty important. It's hard to think through barriers. I think we're going to get to this year. I think maintenance, what we have is really theme and others and something I'm interested in. All of this is maintaining the assets that we've got, open space, and and prioritize over positions of new capital. Really, we have citizens are debating it, and we're not always doing as good a job as we want to. I think we're doing a better job than we used to, but we got to keep that And the beautification point is another part. Because we wanted to maintain Louisville. Be. Maintaining it beautiful. Rejuvenating its communications, all of these things critical. On that right now, and again, it may be by the end of the year. EDI and sustainability. But one of the things that, those are my shifting just for a minute. I think it's not hard to see in the discussion that there are tensions. Some would say contradictions. And some of the priorities, maybe not contradictions, but certainly it's going to be, it is, I'll say this as a sort of rather, but it's true that we are built, almost built. So the use of property, the acquisition of property, is for different priorities here. All intention. If you're gonna build new affordable housing, it's gonna be other than infill. Well, there's gonna be some discussions about what that means in terms of less open space. Or, you know, whether that a space should be acquired. Affordable housing. I think that's almost inevitable. Maybe we want to say that it isn't, but I think that's tension, maintenance, and how much maintenance and what level. We've got assets like the roads. And we've got a lot of money that we put into for years. We have done that to try to get in great shape, to make sure they're in good shape. But it's a lot of money. It's going to be something we'll talk about tomorrow. Something we're comfortable with. It is a lot of money, or is it something we want to? The economic vitality piece of this, I've got to tell you that it increases in revenue, solve all problems. You know, if we're able to be successful in our economic vitality, there are so many things we can do in the city. And so it really is, in many ways, part of it. It's like to make sure we can do the things that help. Anyway, those are some themes that I thought through as I'm hearing this. I mean, I think economic vitality seems to be, you know, almost everyone's first choice. Second. And certainly it's interesting actually how much verification. There's been a lot of, you know, we talked about services. A lot of talked about affordable housing. The utilities came up as a big one on the, now that may be just simply setting, and it may not be something that's got much energy in terms of council. It may not take that. Kind of doubtful that it takes no time. But other things, people talk very seriously about maintaining what we have and not necessarily expanding. Good to hear that, because the latitude to expand is to be pretty limited. I think everybody is focused on this, the compound. So I think we can talk about each one of the general areas, but I'd be interested. Quickly summarize, I mean, are there other common themes and common? We're getting to a point where we can start
Mayor?
to
Yeah.
get to that, yeah.
But I would like to just acknowledge, we have 15 members from each of our departments here, and I should have said at the beginning, but I just want you to know we have resources here, including our interim finance structure, and our budget analyst. They're all here today in the building, and then if you're open to it, I think there are 4 top themes we're kind of coalescing around, and I'd be willing to put those out there for you to see if that feels accurate.
Sure.
I definitely hear that economic activity as a you've already talked about prosperity. I hear that that includes some of the traditional economic vitality things like business retention, attraction, updating our codes. Also, it sounds to me like it might include things like the comprehensive plan and downtown vision. Council's talking about this. I hear core services brought up pretty consistently, maintaining what we have, making sure we're keeping our core services. I hear there might be some conversation of whether utilities and communications are part of that core service. I hear safety brought up a number of times, including preparedness, mitigation, bike pedestrians, general safety of the city. And then I also probably think I'm hearing affordable housing is that top 4, and it gets a little fuzzy. And, you know, this is one person's reflection of a very quick conversation. So I would put that out to you all and say, is it accurate? What are you thinking? It's your priorities to do.
Just looking back at that, if anybody want feedback, concerning standards?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I heard economic vitality from 7 of us, downtown vision plan from 6 of us, affordable housing and core services and safety from 5 of us. So all those kind of make sense to me. There are obviously other things brought up by everybody, but, and then the cell coverage was brought up by a lot of people and, you know, curious.
Big part of safety.
Okay, yeah, I mean, you know, my sense has always been that that's like, more likely that we're in the way than we are the, ones that would do the heavy lifting. It's more like, oh, they'd be happy to put a cell tower right in the middle of our city if we were okay with it. And so it's more like us allowing it, not so much us pursuing it. My misunderstanding how
I'm
cell.
not an expert in that area. I would invite-
Yeah.
And so in 2018, we did comprehensively update our wireless zoning code to become compliant with federal law. But it also allowed, and part of it allowing cell towers anywhere in the range. Required to use, align our code, building mounted cell towers, we have broad easy allowance for. Standalone towers, we still have zoning. Because that's not mandated by the federal law, there's probably any interest in actual towers. But, you know, we would take counter direction if we wanted to do something different, but they are allowed pretty broadly mounted on buildings with design standards, as well as in our right of ways throughout the city. So sometimes it's economic. I think what we found and what I've seen over the years, cell companies, it's an economic question for them. We're worth the money to invest, and we're relatively low density here. So it's often, there's a perception that there's a barrier with city regulations. I think it's more often the case that it's a financial decision for the cell company, whether they want to make that really big investment.
Yeah, and I would add to that, and I think it was last fall, I took a ride with some AT&T regional executives around Louisville to talk about a couple of residents that came with about some of the dead zones. And it was interesting. I think that issue is an important. So I'm interested in making. What I found sort of interesting is their comment that one of the challenges in Louisville. City. We think about this as much, but generally, but a lot of hills. We're built on top of coal mines. And that makes a difference when you are having towers. Towers can only serve, way they were describing it, it's probably an oversimplification. As former council member Sue Lou with the bear brain here. But the idea is that, you need to kind of look at a line of sight to be able to, when you've got a bunch of trees in the way, when you've got fields in the way and so forth, blocking signals. I'm sure that's not totally accurate, but that was the way they were describing it. And it gets expensive for them to try to bridge that gap. Now, there are places in this or nearby where there aren't, there probably could be towers that would help a lot and wouldn't be that big. What is it, GHX? Inside your door? No. GHX on the is way up high, and that's a possibility. The Lafayette, what is it? Is it a water tower right by the water treatment plant in the Northwest? They were salivating about that. And that's not ours, but it would hugely help us. Now, again, how much does that cost? Why isn't that being done? I don't know exactly. Rob and I have had these discussions in the past, and I understand that, sometimes it's real issues that if we had enough people who were grumbling about it and explaining what's so important together, we might help to put some pressure.
I would just say if you hear of a barrier in our code, please let us know about it. An actual barrier, we can try to address with code amendment to remove any barrier. And if you're actually aware, if you have discussion with yourself.
And that was not what I heard. I mean, this was just a one-time thing. But that was not what I heard. They were not saying, oh my gosh, you guys are so hard to deal with, or, which is an easy.
There was an application, I don't know, 12 years ago or so, for my time here, that was very controversial and denied by city council. That was under a different code. So I think there's probably some memory that the city isn't friendly, because that's all, I think it was on the police department or rec center.
Next to the police department, yeah.
So I think, again, we haven't really had a new facility proposal since then. But, again, we're always happy to, work with our code and promote it, or we'll try to address it.
Thanks.
Yeah, and I apologize if I didn't mean to get us too deep down that rabbit hole. I'm just curious if that is a topic in which council time or staff time is really necessary, helpful, or possible, or if it's more that we're reacting to something, or if you really believe that. Because I think it is a little bit like roads, and you drive through town, like, whoa, this road sucks. People drive through town, like, I lost my call again. God, it's so irritating. And we're just in that era now where we as a city somehow aren't providing the right kind of cell coverage. And I think there's a little bit of miscommunication, like, we don't provide cell coverage, but do we have the ability to affect it? And if so, is that something that is a priority for council or not? Like, I heard that, I didn't bring it up. I heard it from a lot of people, and I'm just, I think what would be interesting to know later down the road is there something we can do to put our finger on that scale, to change whether or not, Excel or AT&T, or is that Verizon or AT&T, whomever, put an extra tower in. So that's just, I'm curious if that's worth being on our work plan versus just waiting.
I think that's a good point, because I think in some ways, to Rob's point, I don't know that it is the code at all. I think it's an expense problem and a technical problem. for. And if you're gonna try to convince companies to change course, I mean, that may be something that, you know, that council and with some leadership in the community. Sort of. And getting, not everything is. And I'm not sure this. I mean, staff would love to be able to address, you know, proposals to put in antenna or cell towers or other devices, but I mean, yeah,
And the reason that the one wasn't installed next to the police station is because of community inputs. They didn't want it there blocking.
and I can say that dollars to donuts that people would. If there were NIMBYs in the crowd, I think it would be harder to be an NIMBY. Now, this is a.
We hear a lot of conversation adding in about the cell service to the north side of town, but to the south side of town along Dillon, and we are going to have new development down there as well. I mean, Dillon Road by 88, as you're on Buena Vista, is a total density. It'll drop calls, and that's with Verizon even, which on the north side of town tends to be good. So we keep talking about police station or other high spots. It's something that maybe can work for the whole town, and maybe that's, I mean, it's only what, like 4x4, 5x5 miles. We think that would be feasible.
I mean, it may be one on just another. Did you read?
Yeah, I wanted to come back to Samus, Marie, if I heard you correctly. You listed the themes you were hearing of economic vitality, core services, public safety, and affordable health. So what I wanted to do is bring into the two topics to figure out, do they fall in your view under those four headings? Or do we need to consider these as? So, the first is parks and open space. I think given with the passing of 2C, our citizens have very clearly stated that's a priority and we want to put funding towards that. I'm not certain if that's services or not, so I wanted to bring that up. And then the second one is,
I think that's a call council. Whether you all identify that as core services and it should be part of that item if you'd like to move forward with that, or it's a separate standalone thing, that's up to you.
He's on my list of services.
Yeah, I can.
okay, so, if that falls under that umbrella, I'm okay with that. The second topic that I wanted to discuss is, environmental sustainability. So again, does that fall under one of these headings that you mentioned? And I'm not certain, where you or council see that.
I feel like I have less clarity from this conversation among council of where it is, so it's welcome hearing that.
I think it's under core services. I mean, Deb was clear about it was a separate line item, but I think it's like maintaining what we have and, you know, we've got like really good plans and our sustainability department has really good initiatives already working on and going, so it's like maintaining all of that and continuing to move forward with it. But I think the problem we've got now is core services is now so many topics. And then affordable housing has this line item. And I think in the information from the community survey, those core items probably should be broken out because they should have higher. So I think for me, like it was falling in there because utilities, I wasn't viewed in there, but I was considering utilities to be part of that. Like some others were for city services. So we're lumping a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the environmental sustainability can come in a lot of forms, right? And so I think certainly like when we're performing core services, when we talk about like our, you know, like look at the decarb plan and things we're gonna do, it just keeping our buildings up to date. Well, we're replacing an AC unit. How are we gonna do it now? Oh, through a more environmentally sustainable, you know, style or investment. And so where does that fall under versus, some other like major environmental initiative? And so it feels like it's kind of part of the fabric of how we're trying to run our city. This overused term, but like looking at everything we do through the lens of environmental sustainability, making sure that everything we do, it's in the fabric of that thing, but I'm not hearing, I mean, the decarb plan is a huge plan, but the way it's implemented is in like all these millions of little ways everywhere, and then there are some big projects along the way, right? So if we're gonna put solar panels on top of the rec center, that would be a big project within that sort of theme, but I think we're more likely doing lots and lots of little things and they build over time, and so kind of feels like, oh, well, that one's in Parks and Rec, and that one's in, just basic traffic engineering, whatever, like, we're doing in a lot of ways, and I don't know where it fits in a bucket of like one topic. And I think might be its problem, right, is that like, it's hard to just do that as opposed to like using that principle when we do other things. So it's a concern of mine that it doesn't actually get done, but maybe it's great. It's totally needed.
So do you have a sense of, you kind of address that?
Yeah, I'm still forming that in my head. So thank you for asking me, Mayor. I am hearing a little bit of this comparison of sustainability EI lenses, which we should be looking for through for everything. I think that is important. We're considering maintenance, right? We're looking at that. Are we doing the whole city? Are we approaching that from an equity standpoint? Are we maintaining our things in a sustainable manner? I do think there are moments where some of the large projects in environmental sustainability might come to points of we have to make some resource allocation decisions. So, I mean, decarbonization is one that's been mentioned a lot. That's a multi-million-dollar plan implementation. There are certainly things we can do on that. That might be an area where council wishes to prioritize and reallocate away from other things, or council may wish to reallocate some of the decarb and look at. So for me, a little bit of clarity in your expectations around sustainability as a lens or sustainability as a priority would be helpful. Is sustainability specifically a priority? Is it making sure we're implementing decarb? Or is it making sure when we present you options, we're giving you the sustainability option, we're highlighting what that option is and what some of the plans might be. The choice, so you can make educated choices, knowing what the sustainability impacts are.
What do you all think?
Yeah.
To me, I think I've heard it being sort of big new sustainability initiatives. Two. Let's have this option. Obviously, there are decarb it will, but I see that as a thing that's done and proved. Not a council priority in terms of continuing to work on itself because the thing is done. But sort of using the lens approach and making sure when we are replacing equipment, vehicles, office space, or whatever the case may be, that's about you to count. I think about the discussion. That's in my mind. That's what sort of moves category. Unless something coming from, unless there's some major initiative that would do sustainability.
I think keeping the door open for them is not a bad idea, but I don't think that necessarily means it's on a work plan specifically, right?
Yeah.
It's, if something comes up, if there are suggestions made, whether that comes from the LSAT board or that comes from like a department. But I think you're right. I think as far as like putting it as an item on the comprehensive plan, like our work, the work plan, that we've been there, done that, checked it. We have a really like well-functioning sustainability department that knows like the ideas around what we want to do. And I think the fact that department heads can bring things to council with options that help us make decisions on, we can do this more sustainably, this is the cost factor, then we can make those choices on each project. And then it really is, like to your point, it's woven in every decision.
Solid waste would be a great example.
Councilmember Henry.
Yeah, so I am agreeable to the idea of having sustainability as a lens through which we do the work. And my ask would be to specifically call that out on the work plan document, both the sustainability and the EDI lens. Or however, DEI, EDI, the omission of those words from the work plan, I think the optics of that would not be great. And if someone else feels differently, I'm open to discussing it, but I think there's.
So Hamilton, it needs to be mentioned in the plan that everything is for sustainability and the EDID.
And an economic.
Well, but
Honestly, these.
that's already in here. Economic vitality is already a priority. If we're not gonna call out sustainability as a separate priority, then it has to be mentioned somewhere in the document that it's incredibly important in every decision we make.
I'm not taking issue with that. I think it's, I mean, it sound, there's three, we have talked about the different kinds of sustainability. And I could get 10, 17 kinds of sustainability. Because you gave me a pin, there you go. That's the UN logo. But it's incumbent on us to use all three of those lenses because we've committed to doing that in the past, the economic sustainability plans, the mental sustainability ones, and actually social sustainability, which part of which is DEI. What is different and the distinction that I think here, economic vitality has specific projects that we're talking about. And we're not on a work plan thing. I'm not sure I have any problem mentioning it somewhere. You might think that mentioning it some detached from these other specific and more defined parts of what you're actually minimizing. That's not when you're calling attention to it, but you may actually be undercutting the value. I don't know if that's true or not. We can talk.
And we can call out specifically implementing the decarbonization.
I think that'll be, that's something that we should be talking tomorrow. Because I think there are different views as I'm hearing about how we do that. I think there are parts of the decarb plan that we're going to be doing as things roll forward. Asset management, and that's the, sort of pay as you go issue. But there are parts of the decarb plan that are bigger projects that are going to take a lot of money. And we could put them on work. You could say, this one is a priority. We want it on. But what I'm wondering is, maybe as we're discussing this, are there folks who want a particular part of the work? We could try that.
I would just like the decarb plan to be one of the priorities on the work plan. I don't know if you want to call it out, break it out into sections or not, but as an item, it needs to be a priority.
So my only counter was that I would say like, trying to think of a good analogy, but like public safety, say, crime prevention, right? Unbelievably important to everyone in this community, everyone in this council, but it's not a work plan. Like, we don't have a lot of work to do. So when we talk about like, what are we gonna spend our time and work with or staff to spend their time on? I think we've done a lot of work as a policymaking group to say, we want staff to be implementing decarb plan, environmental sustainability. Almost everyone of us ran on that. We said it, we've made it a clear priority. And so 2025's work plan for me, I would hope we don't need to be making policy around the environment. Like, I think we have a 7-0 vote on caring about the environment and a staff that has clearly been given direction to implement a decarb plan. So good thing we don't have to work on, environmental sustainability this year, as far as like time the council's spending on topics, not on importance. I think it's one of the most important things. So I don't disagree. I don't think I disagree with you. I think that I'm just looking at this conversation differently. Like, I don't need it to be a priority on our work plan.
Yeah.
But on the things that are important to council generally, 100%. Like, very, 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 very crucially important to me. So I think we might be better off making sure it's spoken about and that it's in there, but it isn't like one of the top 4 priorities for the work we do this year.
Okay.
I mean, you may, and on that, there was a comment, I don't know if you made it, somebody else had made it, that sustainability is perhaps a part of the core service. It's maybe that's one way capture. I don't know that it is, but that's one way. That it is supposed to be suffused within all of it. That's kind of what I've heard you say. It's not. If there is though separate, a separate piece that's going to require a lot of council time, a lot of staff time, then traditionally those are the kind of items that are on the work. We do.
Let me say one thing on that, which is, I do think it's key to the benefits. Because placement. So, it's quite different. We will plan, so. All that. Thinking about. Place. Place. Deep. So.
If you can feedback, we've got. I don't know if you. But you get some sense of. To be a priority with all of them.
Yeah, I can speak to that, I think, from a facility standpoint, that we have the sustainability lens now. LED or have the appropriate. Safe access to replacing, trying to look at. Lead, take it back and pick up truck, buy purchase and compare it to. Or lightning instead of lightning instead, so I think we're already enacting all that. I would agree with the comments, I'm not sure we'll be. You've agreed that, that's. Just when we come and something's a little more expensive.
That comes tomorrow.
Yeah.
Actually, that would be a good thing for us to know from, too. Like we said, when we're discussing the options that we have, where that cost factor, what is the long-term, benefit to us? Is there a short-term increased cost? Is there also long-term, like vehicles sometimes don't last as long if they're electric versus, gas powered?
We're doing all that right now. In a lot of cases, we're quoting traditional next to sustainable to see the trade-off. And it just depends on what you're doing right now, it's moving quickly. So we are doing that, and I think it's a council decision to bring that in.
I think on this issue, one of the things that may help to clarify the discussion we're having, which I think is really good, is if you look back at the current plan, and there's something that I think we ought to be doing that's not already baked into how we're dealing with asset management or fleet management, some, one of the projects that important. If you think. So we should be.
Well, and I think that's a good idea, and I was just thinking with regarding the fleet. The cost of purchasing the vehicle is one item that we need to budget, but then there's also the cost of fueling it. Because fueling an electric vehicle is about a third of the cost, or a fourth in some cases, of a gas vehicle. So long-term, that would be another cost savings to switch to electric vehicles.
Yeah, we're watching all that,
Okay,
whatever charging infrastructure needs to be in place or not, I mean,
right.
and then it's, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of factors. How many, what are the duty miles of that particular vehicle? Are we gonna drive enough miles to make it environmentally friendly, and that trade-off comes into play? If we not driving enough miles, and we actually hurt the environment by getting in it, so. But, there are a lot of factors, I think you are bringing up the right points, so we are trying to do that.
Yeah.
It does change every day, all those factors, what's making sense.
Okay, thank you.
Well,
So I just want to make sure that my first comment didn't get lost in the discussion of having a specific item regarding environmental sustainability. So we look at the citizen survey, environmental sustainability is in the top 5. So if we're not addressing that on our work plan in some capacity, because we don't have a specific policy that we have to, review, still think it's important that it's mentioned and we recognize it, and it's a lens. And the same thing with PDI, when we look at the survey summary, lower than national benchmark is attracting people who diverse. And so we're subpar in that category. So again, I think I find not having them be separate items in the work plan, but I think if we omit those lenses, the optics of it is not right. So we all know when we look at it, and staff does, but someone reading this on your website is not going to necessarily make that assumption.
Makes sense.
Some of these other ones that we're talking about, I think. That you just went through and listed. We talked about. So we talked about. Reality, and I think you were talking. You mentioned the business retention track issue as well.
And the comprehensive plan. I think I'm hearing that as a priority theme.
Yeah, I mean. And of course, comp plan is far from just. It's definitely a piece of. One of the things on vision. Plan, maybe wanted to just. I think. In anticipation of next week's discussion with the LC, be thinking to get this material. Get collaborate on that, and it may be a collaboration. On maybe something else, but as I mentioned, we've got. There's an issue around. Yeah. So. And. There's concern on the LRCs. That is not. There's a few people. One person, I think, but there's others who have concerns about whether why. It's certainly not to contribute to that project as to, to focus on vision. But it is something that's contribution. For example, we're gonna work with one of the lots across the way from ball fields, tennis complex, a private public partnership or something is going to be pretty important to have an underpass there. We have money that's coming from Lafayette and from Dr. And we don't want to lose, want to be able to find money to fund that. Great. But I want to talk about the issue because, one of the things that's seen is that, I think it's going to be moving. I think you can move faster. Maybe I should, Rob, if he agrees with that. But that, would you say that the LRC can move faster than council on bringing that? I mean, it's primarily an LRC funded. Well, I'm talking about, I'm switching from that to vision plan.
Vision plan, right? Whether they can move fast. I mean, I think anything they want to do, the council has to approve, but I think they are very interested in moving fast this year, advancing that project, potentially providing funding to get to the next design stage. So we need to have those conversations with LRC later this year, but I think ideally we'd like to start construction design this year, try to get that advanced. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, no, it does. I mean, LRC, but the rest of folks may not know those things.
I think it's also the Richard was saying earlier too about Main Street and, activating it and working in conjunction with the downtown vision plan. The faster that gets moving and more finalized, the faster some other plans.
I mean, it's different than, say, the comp plan. I mean, the comp plan is going to be other kinds of decisions. But as far as I know, the vision plan is changes to something.
No, it doesn't yet. It's not it's really a public infrastructure. plan. So it's really designing, making sure the budget, determine the budget is. And then there's gonna be a lot of phasing involved, working with down businesses to make it work, probably prioritizing. All that's kind of to be determined. But we kind of need to get to that next stage so that his team can get to the 60% plus design, so we can really have a better idea of costs and priorities.
Yeah, I mean, the plan right now has a lot of ideas, like Lego blocks. It's gonna come down to how many Lego blocks you can pull. Flow with what the budget plans on. Design for many things, some of those be listed. Once it's alternates. Prices coming by. Things. But then what we constrain to. So that's what we're working on. Yeah, I think it's,
Do we already have input, Rob, from the business community as to, what they would like to see in that plan as far as like the order of events to help them?
Well, I would say there's a lot of individual opinions from the business community too, so I think the consensus. I mean, the consensus from the business community that I've heard, they're very supportive of it, they're very excited. If we had to try to value engineer pieces, I think there'd be varying opinions. I think they're excited, I think the business community is generally excited about pretty much all of it. It maintains parking, maybe adds parking, makes downtown front and Main Street. So I didn't answer your question.
I just didn't know if like the DBA was like as a collective rather than individual business owners kind of giving input, because I think I remember looking at the plan and some of it was actually the Front Street piece was one of the early pieces to go. Is that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's hopefully the initial phase, because that's where we have all of our events and gatherings, so I think it's come out from the business community, and really the whole community is probably a priority here. It's Front Street, for sure.
Yeah, you'll have, there'll be many check-ins that don't require. So there'll be a high level budget discussed tomorrow, and then we'll continue for this. I'll come to you and others and say, figure it out, moving forward, to stay ready. So there'll be some design workshops. Steinbach Pavilion. Design.
I'm not staying because of the Main Street piece. If that's gonna be one of the bigger pieces, then that might be something that we want to discuss sooner, because maybe something needs to be done in the interim. I was thinking, if that's not for 2 years, do we want it to go 2 years before we adjust?
There's a Main Street piece with the trends of meetings and going on, it's probably.
Five,
Down.
Yeah, the priorities are, as we heard it.
Mhm.
So, signage, all of downtown trees. And each Front Street. And that.
So
I think
we're
these,
part of the work plan, sorry,
what,
we're part of the work plan, then we should be discussing this year whether or not we close Main Street next year. Because that has to be decided really soon in order for that to be an effective project
So that is on the work plan for this year.
for this year.
2024.
Yeah,
Okay,
so yeah, I know, Vanessa is working on it and planning that out for the end of this year.
okay.
That's-
And are we contacting, RTD?
We've been in contact with our RTD, we have some more follow-ups to do, to see about alternative bus routes.
All right,
And that's separate from the vision, yeah.
Right.
I think those two things got intermingled for a little bit.
right.
I like. So we pull them apart.
the vision planning, we can continue to talk. Thinking that to be on the other things, but I think on the 30th. See, we have to really piece. We get on the same page. Because ideally, I mean, it's a priority for us on this year's plan to try to do more in collaboration. Zoom. With Oopsie and we've got a lot of questions flying around. We'll get some answers that we worked out yet next week. Just thinking about business retention. That's part of the EVPs. Some of that obviously is just vision, but what they're doing, are there particular pieces of that you anticipate bringing to council?
I think, so Mayor, if I may, my recommendation would be that you all share what you've shared tonight. I think we've got enough information on the economic vitality and prosperity piece. Then the next step is we'll plug in what some of those projects and programs we think are that meet your vision. And we'll build this out a little bit and we'll have another discussion with you all to check in. Is that accurate? Did we understand you? Is this where you want to go from 2025? And we're planning to do that in August. So I recognize that schedules are a little bit flexible.
That sounds great. At least from my standpoint, everybody else. Put it up. Okay. Are there the parts that maybe we're not? That want to give us a chance to see the list of projects discuss because there's some that every person mentioned that could make it to this. And do we have, I mean, we've talked about it before, but we've also talked about attainable. And I know there are different views, documents, views about housing. I think everybody agrees on, I think that is clear. How, where we focus, I think is worthy of a few more minutes of discussion.
And language, if you'd like to say affordable or attainable, that'd be.
Councilmember Hackman.
Yeah, so I mean, look, I think we all agree it's a priority. I also think we have detailed strategies. I'm happy, Sam, these based on the. Maybe that's.
I was just gonna ask, if there would be any rezoning considerations for where that housing could go,
Yeah.
where it's not currently.
Yeah, that's a. I would say, I kind of look at this as a sustainability thing, like the big projects, like the housing. We took that on, that was this year, doesn't necessarily need to be part of the 25 work plan. I think we should move forward with the plans that we've already agreed to and given to staff to follow. That is the direction, and then we can make decisions based on what they bring to us. And yes, the zoning piece with the comprehensive plan, that's gonna be, how they implement some of those housing initiatives. But
And I guess I want to push back a little bit. Because I think there's a menu of options in the housing fund. And I think we decided, if I remember, we adopted housing plan. The deeper. That generally speaking, supported. But where we want to focus attention is going to change year to year. And I think providing some direction there, Sam, I mean, staff can come up with programs, but I don't know if I'm comfortable not providing a little bit direction on that. I don't know. We can talk a bit.
Yeah, I think I agree with most of what Dietrich says in the sense that we've at least done that. We've got a housing plan that starts the conversation. We have a comp plan coming that might help us in the direction of the where and the how. We've got a work plan that says we want to look at codes and updating codes around things like density or zoning, things like that. So I think all that is out there. My concern, the reason it's my number one priority is, I'm still waiting for something to react to. I'm waiting for, hey, so this is the project that we're thinking about doing. What do you guys think? Like, because I'm not, as a council person, right, I'm not gonna go out there and say, hey, we should buy this plot of land and work with this entity to do this. I don't have the expertise, I don't have the experience. What I want, and the reason I put on there is I want success looks like something actually happening rather than a housing plan or direction that we want affordable housing or ten. I'd like to see actually something happen, right? So I've been here for 4.5 years, whatever, and like, I'd like to see something shovel hit the ground. And so that's why it's on my list, but to be fair, I think we've given a lot of direction and policy, but what I'll be interested is for staff to come back and say, okay, well, is it money, is it cooperating, is it, incentives, is it like, how would you like to accomplish it? This is how we think we could accomplish affordable housing in the next 5 years and the pace in which we could do it. react. And then someone goes, well, we can't afford that. Someone else says, it won't work in that neighborhood or something, like, then we react to something. And so I think we've done a lot of policymaking, but I do think there's more to be done when it comes to which strategy does this council want to take forward in implementing what it seems to be a shared goal of affordable or attainable. And so as Sam said, 60% AMI affordable housing is really different than 120%, AMI affordable housing is very different, deed restricted versus, like, there's so many versions of some sort of affordable housing that I think it is a little difficult for staff they can't just execute, right? They can't just do it. They'll have to bring something back that is, a thoughtful strategy in different regions, different areas, and I think it will come frustratingly through a long process of comp plan and things like that, but, I'm just concerned that in, 2027, we're like, well, good luck with affordable housing, guys, right? Like, it still hasn't happened, and so that's what I'm trying to avoid and keep my foot on the pedal on that topic, but, I think it's tough, I think I agree with it.
Yeah, so I'll just say, I mean, my top line priorities, I don't want to go, in this meeting, I don't think any of us want to go a lot more detailed than this, are the top line strategies, the housing. First is targeted policy and zoning changes, second is leverage funding opportunities and partnerships, and third is comprehensive policy and zoning changes, which is kind of sort of another one that sort of broader vision. And I think you're speaking more about them too, about, finding some funding to do with the project. It's really important.
We don't do one, we do two.
And I don't, maybe I'm misunderstanding the meeting, but I need to get down to the change.
No, and I wasn't suggesting that thing. My question is, do you have?
Yes, Mayor.
Okay. And we'll come back. And what I'm trying to suss out is the tension between affordable housing and workforce. Because there have been different views on discussions and just listening to the discussion. There are different views. So, and which view, which one push for, I think is part of it. We need to think about. That's, I'm fine waiting on the discussion, but I'm gonna continue to press it. I think if we're gonna get anything done, that's something that council agrees on. We all agree we want to get something done and not simply kick the can down the road.
I don't think they're mutually exclusive, right? I mean, you can do both. I mean, there's someone saying attainable, someone saying affordably, indicated level, maybe we can look at it all, right? And I agree with Caleb, but gotta get some stuff done. I think residents are wanting to see some progress, just not enough, feel like probably circle the airport, we don't land the plane, let's land the plane this year, next year, or whatever, but I agree, I want to see some stuff happen. It goes with the downtown vision plan. Like, this community is looking for core services. I mean, we also, we want free drinking water. That's not something that's like, our town is great, we have great drinking water, right? But they talk about street grade, they talk about our library, they talk about our parks and things. That's what we need to, give them something to grasp onto. All that other stuff, I agree, is totally important. First, right, we have to have the road safety, all that stuff. But that's not, people sort of just assume, I live in this town, I have clean drinking water. We need to demonstrate that we are making choices that people can, gravitate towards, that then will benefit DEI, will benefit sustainability, will bring in money that we can then go from Front Street to Main Street and do all that stuff. So that's, I think we just, what I've witnessed in my few short months here is we do a lot of talking and the action isn't always there. And I want to see some action, so.
Isn't some of this housing piece, especially if we're talking about, not like state subsidized housing, or look at very large, pay affordable, but if we're talking about attainable housing, workforce housing, then it is making the city approachable much better. Right, it's because that's who's gonna come in and build these communities at listening to us, listening to how we rezone the land, listening to the commitment that this council has. To provide housing for the teachers, the firefighters, you know, the people who can't afford a $850,000 house, you know, average. I think that's where we have to focus. It's not necessarily that we put policies in place on how to spend our money to get a developer, isn't it like encouraging and finding ways to have, because I'm not exactly sure who on staff reaches out maybe. Yeah,
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment about how, because I do hear this a lot about how can the city be more approachable for housing development. And I do hear from city council quite a bit about competing policies, sustainability policies that cost extra money to build. Do have an influence. You know, I think you talked about home, we're gonna be having discussions about home park. Those are costs that can influence the housing developers' desire to come into the city. But those are things the city council also wants to achieve. So I just wanted to mention that whenever we're talking about these policies, sometimes they're not in a vacuum. Some policies we want to achieve are going to overlap and impact other policies, and just being cognizant of that. We're having this future conversation, probably a little too much into the weeds, but as I'm hearing this, I think those are the things we need to consider. If we really want to remove barriers, try to bring housing in, yes, by right name, with policy, you know, not having subject to, you know, a lot of, you know, big public hearing where there's a lot of discretion. Developers have to come in and spend hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not more, and they may not get the zoning. So having predictability in zoning, as well as making the other policies promoting the affordability.
Yeah, I'm gonna start this comment by saying we have brilliant experts on staff that are very knowledgeable about what projects could fall under the 4 headings that Sam highlighted for us. And they have documents in many of these instances that can help guide them. So I don't feel the need, like Councilmember Hefner, to discuss this more tonight. I think Sam pretty clearly said that she has what she needs and staff can come back with a menu that we can workshop. So I'm fine workshopping because I feel like this is kind of making language from the dais on the spot. Like, I don't really know how productive it is. I think it's better to, you know, press pause right now, let the experts do their work, and then bring the menu back to us to workshop and decide where to go.
And I think I mean, I think we can, these are things, some of these things we deal with. I like to solve issues because I think we need to address them. But we don't need to do. Other issues that we didn't put in that list.
communications. That's one thing we hear from residents all the time, and I don't know that that's maybe our work plan, or if it's more 100%, you know, staff, and then you just come to us if you needed something. I just wasn't sure that even needed to be.
I made a note of that too, as we were talking. Is that core service for the city to communicate out? Is that something we should consider as part of that? So seeing some nods.
Our core service list is getting very long.
And typically,
And you're putting together. A plan to bring to us this.
yes, actually, I think we're anticipating coming to the council in late August with a little bit of an update on some things we're doing around recommendations.
Good.
Baseline goals.
Anything else?
2 kids just rode by us doing wheelies through the parking lot and down the. Monkey bike? Regular bike? They looked maybe electric. I'm not.
Did they have helmets on?
They had helmets on, 2 kids.
There you go.
I don't think they're breaking any laws, they're just pulling wheelies. Just want to bring that up.
Okay, yeah, keep it in real. Yeah, keep it in real. Safeties, right? Other thoughts before we move on?
I just was hoping that we could. And it's not just like part of the work plan, but maybe more of messaging that we really collectively work to smooth things out, to keep things just like flowing, not constantly adding new diverging paths. And for the residents, for the staff, I mean, for everybody citywide to just make, I mean, we've been through COVID, we've been through the single worst wildfire in state history. This town's been pretty heavily impacted by a lot in recent years. We made a lot of changes last year, several earlier this year. It just seems to be an awful lot of upheaval. So I think smoothing things, not adding tons, keep working on and just the staff staying stellar without having, 500 new projects in 2025. I think would be something I would like to encourage us to think about.
I think that's a very good segue into just the budget committee, or the budget. Be doing just that kind of thing. One thing I would say about that, a lot of people talk about how active our residents are. And which is great, in my view, but it's challenging at times. And I've said to them that if we had a heat map of Louisville, it's sort of the color of anxiety. There's a certain amount of anxiety, and this is not only, not a lot of communities. As we're doing this, process, as we're going through the budget, I think that's here. Staff. But I do think that it's something that as we go through tomorrow, just take a breath every so often. All right, so I think we're there. The last thing we have to do, are actually kind of want to.
Yeah, I don't know, we're take a break.
Okay. 5-minute break. Minutes.
Are you excusing some of the staff in the next conversation?
No,
Or are you staying?
I'm,
Staff.
they don't need to. I can't excuse. We can't excuse.
So are we coming back to the next item on the agenda? Or are we waiting?
So we're done with conversation on work plan.
Yeah.
Okay.
See you all. Thank you for being here.
Yes. Have a good night.
Bye-bye. You gotta dismiss her. I thought you wanted to give me a break.
Yes. Before you know
It's gonna wrap a little bit.
Wait.
I do. Usually my kids.
Complain about it?
He did.
Yeah.
They're.
This one stands out, it's sort of,
Is that an e-bike?
it is, barely,
I got paper. There.
How come only barely?
it's just very modern.
But it's a, but
It's like an athletic.
Yeah.
But that means you can actually ride it like a bike instead of like these kids do, it's like, it's a scooter, it's not a bicycle. I don't even know why the pedals move on
So
their
from my
bikes.
favorite thing about it, just that like, when you hop on it, you get the thumb. It is a class two, so when you go to get on it, you get the thumb and you just start like going, and there's no, like, you know, you can like get on, like, all right, I'm gonna do this, like, I barely even sit on it, and I like just start going, then but it's like, it is definitely one of the key benefits for like older and less able people is the starter, but like I find it's convenient. All right,
are we all ready? We're all good. Councilmember Fay? Will you join us?
Jesus, yes, sorry.
Waiting for you, Councilman Fahey.
You're holding things up here.
Says Judy, get Judy out of the hallway.
Hey, I'm back.
Are you got us turned back on? Okay. The next item and the last really, agenda is to talk a little bit about, excuse me. The assignments, if you will, to help with the process of seeking a new city manager, which is very exciting. There's two pieces of this. Only one was on, well, I don't know. I think we can do both of these under a single heading. Two parts of the process. One of them is to come up with the RFP for the headhunter, or I don't know what the nice thing is. Recruiter. That is an incredibly important. Because you want to get recruit. So, you want somebody who's really capable. And I think we're gonna get, I'm just hoping we're gonna get good, solid people. Good, with it, but That's one piece. And then after that is finished, there's kind of shepherding the process. And in the interest of trying to involve can in this process, I need to really be involved. The second piece of this. But there's another person who's working on the first part. Drafting or its modification of some language that put together. It would be good to those folks to meet, and we can employ them to want to, but I took the liberty of asking Caleb to be the two work up RFP. I don't know if there's anybody else interested in that. But, yes. Those two folks. And then we have to take a vote.
With Tim, would you be willing to do it?
No, I just don't have, I don't have the bid, given everything that's going on, so I'm happy to inform it, I'm happy to discuss it. I'm hoping we can leverage RP from, Jeff's hire.
Oh, we have plenty.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah, they're working.
yeah, I
She's
mean,
working on it.
I'm a big believer in not recreating the wheel,
Yeah.
right, so, hopefully it's not heavy lift for you too, but I'm happy to.
Yeah, and just to be clear, we'll get a chance, the rest of council will get a chance to look at this. Just as the rest of council is going to get a lot of updates during the course of the shepherd process. And obviously, when it comes to deciding who are the people we're gonna interview. And that's exciting. That's exciting. I think it'll be more exciting than it used to.
Yeah. When it comes to the point that you're going to interview, that is going to be a two-person conversation, not a second-person conversation. Because applicants don't want their names released, now they're listed as finalists for obvious reasons. And you guys can have a private conversation about anybody, as we can't have a conversation with anybody.
Yeah, that was a problem CU had.
So the stages are, find a recruiter. Well, I guess before that is, finalize an RFP for a recruiter. Step two, once that RFP is put out, is to select a recruiter, by their applications. Once a recruiter's in place, they will recruit and bring us a pool of applicants. And step three for us is to whittle down the entire pool of applicants, I assume with the recruiter's help, to a smaller group of applicants, that we interview. And at that point is the list that we interview, the one that we make public, or is that even prior to finalists?
So the recruiter will get a group of say 50. The two council members that are chosen along with the staff that are working on it will then narrow that down to probably 10. That working group of staff and the two council members may want to do interviews of those 10, phone interviews to narrow it to the finalists, which is probably 3 to 5. That 3 to 5 is what the group of 7 will get to discuss, and that will be the topic. But you as a group of 7 won't be able to discuss the applicant pool prior to then because it will have to be done in.
And just to be clear, there's two groups of council members we're talking about being involved in this race. The RFPers and the peers.
And by the way, I would expect people who are the to recommend to council get staff. But you need to improve. Yes, so I would say have a big voice, the two who've written the RFP.
Yeah, last time you two, so you would work with staff on reviewing proposals, deciding which ones you want to interview. And then one.
That makes sense.
So we would be interviewing them.
The recruiter. Yeah, and I don't know. Steps work, I'm put a YouTube in there. Very, very interesting. The winnowing down of applicants, so I'm maybe willing or able to do both, but certainly be interested in the second one, and volunteering the first one eliminates me from the second one, then it's like less interested. So I don't know what your plans are, what you're envisioning. Obviously, I know you want to be a part of the winnowing down to, 5 people, 3 to 5 people. So I don't know who you're thinking of as the second person.
I haven't talked to anybody. And in fact, we want to. That's one of the reasons we're having this discussion right now. And I think it's, if folks want, let's take the first part. Or maybe we should take the second part first. The second part, that is the winnowing down, what I call shit. So there's contact. Excuse me, with the recruiter, there's questions here and there, but a lot of these questions are handled with staff. I think that the packet that's put together, the brochure, what are they called?
Yeah.
Is something that's like one of the first things we'll do. When it task to prove, but I think I'm just gonna throw this. When we do that process, it may be good to get input from staff. Input from staff in putting together that. Sure, that's
The draft
definitely.
RFP we have so far asked on-site visit with the recruiter for creation of that brochure. That it will put input from all of councilors.
Good. Yes.
So is this part of the process? Bring this, when we have 2 council members who are the representatives to carry this process through. So like a agreed upon rubric or certain things we want them to weigh that we feel are important, that staff can weigh in, they feel are important in the leader, so that we can have confidence that those 2 individuals are representing they should, but not that they wouldn't. Have a clear essence.
To identify criteria we want on, based on the conversation with council and with staff and what they're looking for qualities manager. It's criteria to review the application. I will say the last time we did this, I think we had 50 to 60 applicants in the initial pool. 15 of them were, yeah, so I'd love to get 100 really qualified applicants, and it's a difficult thing, but I would hope that the recruiters are able to really help all of us with that process.
Build a rubric that reflects our values and what we need.
I will say last time we did this. That was involved. We didn't use quite as. Was I think.
I think it's what, I mean, we've had this discussion recently. Work. Rather than, and on this, it's incredibly. This is at least. Except for what I consider to be a function which still requires staff. Having city manager is a central piece of one. Having one. And right. This is a review. what I would say, is the maximum extent possible at each stage, consistent with the public meeting rules and legalities. We can't, we've got to be careful disclosing people in the public. We would be delighted. We remember candidates. So, I mean, if we were to say, oh, we're going to announce X number of people, then people will be dropping off. So, doing jobs.
Yeah, I mean, I think if there's a rubric involved, we did something similar for boards and commissions for consistency and make sure everyone's values are reflected. I'm happy unless someone else is very eager to take on the role of the RFP drafting to do that for the team. And I don't have the desire to then represent.
Me too. I mean, it's not just. That's
I'm saying I'm happy.
you're willing to do.
Up to two.
As I said, I mean, I'm willing to go start to finish, but I'm more interested in the second half than in the first half. But I will, your service mayor for what you need.
Are there others?
Kim wants to do Part B and Shepherd. Is there a reason why we're splitting?
Because I'm wanting more people to be
Oh, I just,
it's part of it. So who is willing to join the club?
I mean, I don't mind.
It says that they was in person too.
I mean, like, I think it's gonna be fine. I don't think it's gonna be,
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
it shouldn't be a huge amount of work.
No, but it's really important to capture. It's important to
Even-
capture. I mean, we just talked about, you just
but I
said
think
that.
Caleb can do it too.
No, what I would say is, I think it is very important. And I think when you're looking to get a good hire, the net you cast and the way in which you recruit people that are interviewing
Mhm.
is as important as selecting the right person. If you don't get the right applicants, you are stuck selecting what you have. So it's an incredibly important process. And I think maybe easier in the sense that like there are sort of steps that go, like it's not, you're not making a final decision, but it's an incredibly important process to get the recruitment of these people right. And show this job as the way we want to show it and the skills that are open to possess, because we want to encourage people that get interviewed for this job that have those skills, right? So we want to present ourselves really well with the brochure and other things. So I think it's a really important role, and I think it will be relatively time consuming. I would prefer not to, I would say I'd probably prefer not to do the whole thing. Again, if Chris, you're not saying this out loud, but if you
I'm
find
looking
it,
for 4 people.
you are looking for people. Because I didn't know if you're like, if you to someone who's start to finish, or you're looking for people.
No, because I think that my view is, one, I'd like to have more, but two, I think that the focus on, we need somebody to work on that piece, and it's really gonna be important, and there'll be input. People can have input. Ultimately, it'd be nice to have that be a consent agenda item, but I want to make sure. If it turns out that, the recommendation was to do, getting a lot of input on three, that we need to have some public discussion about. I'd rather,
Staff, right, we have some lessons learned the last time. And I think I also talked about. some lessons learned. So I think from a staff perspective, quite a number, I think we want to make sure are addressed properly. And the most useful.
yes. Yeah, because, just so you know, we do have. But, the blind share. There's a lot of, as I remember.
So
Or-
let's just say we should have more than we had last.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's not necessarily the case. And I do remember last time, it's like, there just wasn't enough coordination to make it smooth. And so,
Judy, say if you want, otherwise I'll do.
Yeah, I'll do it.
Okay. Maybe Barb for the RFP and me and you for the shepherding.
Would Dietrich be willing to do the shepherding? So that we have somebody
I
who
think my
wasn't
coach
on
is
before.
speak strongly in favor of it.
But there's, she's offering another possibility, right?
My perspective was, just to have, we have 3 members of council who were here when the last city manager was hired. And we have 4 department heads. And, given that one is now the mayor, I was thinking that having one of the 4 newer members of council part of that shepherding process, just to review, so there's different viewpoints, because my thought would be, the way that my lens is that you guys have a similar thought process that you did the last time. And maybe a little bit has changed, but you like looking at things in a similar way. And so 2 people have the mindset before, like back, looking for the next city manager. I thought that maybe just a new perspective and hope that maybe.
But I don't think that either of these 2 were involved last time in the shepherding process.
No, but they were in the hiring.
Yeah,
Well, in the final interview.
we did the final interview.
Yeah, I mean, I think I understand what you're saying.
But everybody will be involved in the final interview.
Right.
I mean, I think I take it. It's nice to have one from the old guard. And one from the new guard. I'm fine either. So. Somebody was like. You're talking, but we can find. Caleb. Like, Rick, I'm fine with anybody else.
I would
Except
say,
I'm not fine with Deb because she wasn't.
Oh, okay.
And so,
Yes.
what is unflattering about the nomination? If we were gonna pick somebody from the newer group, I would refer it to the newer group. Interview panel,
Well, yeah, wonderful.
because I assume we're gonna have someone apply for this job.
So then have Caleb take one of the initial positions and one of these 2 come with Chris for the second.
Yeah, if we were gonna. That's what I would suggest, just if we were trying to be.
Yeah.
And then you get the perspective, that lens from both the process to set it up with the recruiter, put together the
Right.
requirements as well.
it's a suggestion. Are we currently with suggestion?
How many
Well, which
people
of
do
you
we have?
would like
Well,
to
let's,
see?
let's, why don't we take the second? Yeah. If we're talking about. Yeah, the person. And Deb, I'm not assuming that you absolutely aren't interested. Justin?
I am asserting that I am overwhelmed right now and do not have the time.
Deb's got to move very short. I think that's separate.
And then, how many candidates are in the final?
Usually 3 to 5.
Yeah.
So we could actually have up to 5 people that we could interview. Okay.
It's a lot of work.
I think we did 5 last time and then 1 dropped out. Or interviews, so we did 10. We did a 2-day process.
So let's do this. One of you more interested in that? Because.
I'm good with RFP. Judy.
Sure. Yeah, I guess. I was gonna say like, yeah, because I'm trying to figure out where we get that most impact. Like, does it come from like getting the language and that intent, like follow the RFP and working with the recruiter? Or does it come on the back end, going through the resumes?
I think honestly, the 2 places you're gonna make most impact is when the crew comes out and you get input on what you want to see, for sure. The characteristics you're looking for, that kind of thing. The other one is actually the interview.
At the end. So I guess it doesn't matter. So if you want to do the shepherding, Caleb, I'll work with Barbara and then,
Well, I think the teacher point that
Yeah.
gender balance.
but if that doesn't, it's not gonna really play in this much.
I think we just.
You'll have the staff involved in running.
So I think the question.
Yeah, that's fine.
If we just, unless I miss, I think we
What did that
give,
over the shop? Yeah.
well, is that somebody's company? Make sure it's not just. That's volunteering, sounds like.
You get everybody into. If you express a strong interest.
Yeah, part of group 7, so. That doesn't work, that's fine.
So for the first, for the RFP. Okay, then. Okay. You guys can get along.
I know how to put her in her place and it's poorly, it's really poorly, it doesn't work at all.
Oh, we're on TV. But I think you're right. I'll agree with you. And if Judy can tolerate me, I think we can manage it.
Okay.
All right, anything more on that? Concerns, comments, thoughts? I think,
So this is part of the update, maybe it's the way, you know, I'd like to try to think outside the box, like, and not just be like, oh, city managers only, right? Apply, need apply, like, I don't think that needs to be a prerequisite. Like, I'd like to see if we can attract some private sector type of change agents.
General or something applied last time.
Yeah, I mean, I'm open to that, because if you keep going the same, you gotta get the same result, so. Not that I don't wanna look at city managers that have previous experience, but I'd like to think outside the box. Is my, on the RFP, like, I don't want people who, with Joe would interest to be like, oh, you have to have city manager experience. Right? People run companies, people run businesses, entrepreneurs, you know, things like that, so.
well, and I think, again, at each one of these stages, the more input that we can all make at any, to the maximum extent possible, the better. So when you get, even before, I mean, we do this, but, if you have thoughts about what you want to see in the RFP, you know, maybe send them to Meredith, and Meredith can distribute them appropriately. Meeting rules. And, you know, be clear about the things you're thinking. I think. Putting something together. Because I think, having been through this twice before, I do think that giving directions. That's not, you know, Dennis or Aaron did it before. It's probably Ashley, and I'm not sure, it might have been Jeff. So, but anyway, the more input, I think it'll make, you know, hopefully we can do it through.
The motion and vote.
Well,
Motion and vote.
can I say that we also should look into not just the person particularly, but the location that they're currently and what the issues are.
I want to make sure, well, that's when I think barely on the edge of agenda, so.
Okay.
All right, so,
What point do we discuss this, or do we just send, because it was nice to hear your input instead of just like everything going to Meredith and then I don't know, because I like I would agree, I think it's good.
well, it's,
Can we discuss?
If you wanna bring it back to the public meeting item, then you can have a full discussion. If you wanna bring it back on consent.
I mean,
I would
Okay,
suggest
I'm-
that if you have.
I'm a
So
little
things you
nervous
wanna-
about,
Just
we're
send it
really
to you.
talking about,
Things you wanna see.
I think the concern is you don't want a lot of public record going out there, because the person who's going to be looking at us will look at it. So if we have a big debate in our council meeting,
Right.
they'll know. And they're gonna be watching that, and if we need to have a debate, need everybody. But just bear that, there's a cost to it. And
And the RFP is just to pick a recruiter.
Yeah.
It's not an RFP for candidates, it's an RFP to pick a person to solicit resumes. Right.
Oh, I thought it was also candidate.
no, but it'll just say how we want them to be doing some of this. And I mean, there's a little bit of gray area that they may stray into. I don't know. Leave it, I mean, I trust that these two put as much specificity as needs to be there to get.
And then do Barbara and Caleb work with the recruiter then to set that kind of information out there? Is that, or is that part of the brochure piece? That
That's part of the brochure.
Okay, thank you.
Shepherd.
I'm gonna move two folks be appointed to do those two people. Remember to- So,
Second.
all in favor? You didn't say aye?
I did say, I said.
Very good. All right, second motion would be to, for the two council members to shepherd the process to the final, this, final interviews. That means finals. So. Councilmember. Second. Opposed? I think it's, ayes have it. All right, thank you. Motion adjourned. But it's gone. Thank you all.